And hello, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'm Aviation Hayden. Today we are going over the CFII Checkride, where I am your newest CFII person in the United States, at least. Um, so I'm a certified flight instructor with an instrument add-on for that, right? So first we're going to hit it hard. We're going to go into everything, the full guide of what you need to know for the CFII Checkride. So first we're going over the abbreviations. Now this is the PTS for the CFII PTS. So first off, what you're going to do is actually go to pilotscafe.com and IFR quick review guide. You're going to download this document. Say I want this, and then you pay. Just put in $0 in there. It's free, and then put in your email. It gets sent to you, and then I'll show you what comes up is this. So everything that pertains to the at least the instrument ACS will be on here, as well as the uh, the CFII PTS will be on here. Everything hits every single area of operation on this. Okay, but first of all, what you're going to do is just know all these abbreviations. Okay, now there's some that you don't necessarily need to know. For instance, I'm trying to think, like light emitting diode. I mean, it's just LED light, but light emitting diode. I guess that's what you can add. Anyway, so go over the abbreviations first, and then come down here. And what you're going to do is just start going one by one of each area of operation, at least. And then you can skip the whole, FOI section of that. So we'll go down here, scroll. So going down to the area of operation 2, the technical subject areas. This is where we're going to start, right? Because area of operation 1 is all the FOI stuff. We skip that. We go down straight to the area of operation 2 for the technical subject areas. All right, so first up we have task A, aircraft flight instruments and navigation equipment, right? And this is just pitot-static system, right? Attitude indicator, HSI, RMI, heading indicator, DG, whatever it is, magnetic compass, turn slip indicator, electrical system, vacuum pump, all the good stuff. And then we also have navigation equipment like VORs, DME ILS, GPS. I highly recommend knowing everything you can about GPS with RAME, WAAS, and actually, if your DPE mentions it, I would even go a step further and know what a TSO is, right? Technical Standard Order. Know which TSOs are for RAME and which TSOs are for WAAS. So I would know the difference between those. FMS systems, multifunction display, MFD, and then anti-ice, de-icing, weather detection equipment, airframe, propeller, rotor, air intake, basically just every type of system that you have inside of the aircraft. Just know how it works. So the good thing about the internet is that you have YouTube, okay? So there is this CFII playlist I will actually link below. It has just labeled up here on the top right, just says CFI, where my big ass head is right here, but it says CFI. It goes over all the gyroscopic instruments, pitot-static instruments, how a turn coordinator works, slip skid, everything. There's 17 videos in here. It's all very good stuff.
Precession. It's again rigid in space.
So yeah, just know that there's really good stuff that Embry-Riddle has posted for gyroscopic instruments and everything pertaining to IFR flight. They have some good stuff on there. And then Captain, what's his name? I believe it's right here. Captain Joe. He has a really good video on here. What is a VFR or VOR? Explained by Captain Joe. So basically, just the VOR sends out two signals. It has a variable and a reference signal. So it basically is a pulse and a sweep. But again, this isn't a video on what actually to dive into, but I'm just kind of giving you an aid of what actually information to hit and make sure you know it, because I don't want this video to get too long. So yeah, know all of this stuff right here. If it's on the PTS, you need to know it, because especially here in the area of operation, the technical subject areas, the examiner shall select at least task A, D, and one other task. So, all right, so you're going to be asked at least one of these. Like primarily for my DPE, he kind of hammered me on GPS and VOR, DME, and ILS. Not so much, ADFs and NDBs, since they're kind of going obsolete. but he did mention it at least a little bit, but we really hammered on GPS, and I think a lot of DPEs now are going towards knowing GPS in and out, and how everything divulges into GPS. Again with the pedostatic system, all the attitude indicator, your standard 6-pack, no steam, and also if you're equipped with the G1000, know what an ADC is and your AHARS and magnetometer, and how everything works with that, and also in general just knowing your aircraft systems. That's the biggest thing for task A. Right, then we have task B, aeromedical factors. If right off of coming off of CFI, this should be really fresh in your memory. And I'm sure if you prepared for CFI, you have your own guide to go off of for if you've made PowerPoints for this. So this shouldn't really be much of an issue for you. But again, I was not asked any aeromedical factors, besides I think maybe some, I believe alcohol and drugs. Again, it's very minute, and maybe some motion sickness stuff. So yeah, we move on to task C, regulation publications related to IFR operations. So no parts 61, 71, 91, 95, 97. Now, I believe, I want to say 95 and 97. I think 95 is not actually in the FAR or the FAR aim. So I would go on ForeFlight. ForeFlight actually has a downloadable option for all of these, and then at least just be familiar with it. You don't have to know each and every single regulation, of course, but know what pertains, to that specific thing for IFR flight. For example, Part 61, right, certification of pilots. For instrument at least, right, 61, 65 is going to be everything relating to the hours, right, obtaining hours for rotorcraft, airplane, glider, things like that, right? And then 91 operations, 91, 175, that's going to be the most prominent thing, at least know that regulation for sure. And then everything else just touch up on and at least know where it exists and at least the information you can find. And then again, all of these are available on ForeFlight if you have ForeFlight. The Aeronautical Information Manual, again, in the back of the FARs. If you have the 2024 FAR aim, at least in this year currently. The Practical Test Standards, which is this document that we're looking at. The AFD, or in other words, the chart supplement, which you should have on ForeFlight. The SIDS and STAR, you also have on ForeFlight. En route charts, ForeFlight, which you already should have, in standard instrument approach procedure charts, SIAP charts, again, which are automatically equipped with ForeFlight. So this is just the easy section. Just be familiar and know where to find this information. And one thing I really highly suggest is by actually completing a series of documents that you can put into a folder actually for yourself. So if you go into ForeFlight, you can actually equip things into a binder. At the top here, it says CFI and then CFII. So the CFII binder, for me at least, consists of the TERPs, the Southeast Chart Supplement, Part 61, 91, 95, 97, Instrument Rating ACS, Weight and Balance, Aviation Instructor's Handbook, Instrument Procedures Handbook, and the most important thing, at least, is I think the certification standards and the IFR low and high charts have that on there. Because it's good if you don't know where something is, it's either going to be in the chart supplement or on the IFR low legend chart or something along those lines, or the TERPs. So that covers task C, basically just a whole ForeFlight thing right there. So task D, logbook entries related to instrument instruction. Now, of course, we're all familiar with 6165 hotel. At least its hotel is current at this time of day. It could go to the next later tomorrow, so we don't know that yet. But at this current day, it's 6165 hotel. And then just knowing your standard logbook entries, right, for instrument flight. So if I'm a CFII, and I'm giving instruction to my student, well, automatically I know they get the 38, 39, 40. They do not need the Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, because since the 40 covers the Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. And then the 38, 39, actually, I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot what it was. We'll do 61, 65 hotel. I believe one is for the knowledge test and one is for the practical test, I want to say. I believe 38 is the the aeronautical knowledge test. That's exactly what it is. So instrument rating endorsements, no, just these three, and then also your CFII endorsements for that. All right, so it's pretty simple. All you gotta know is just 38, 39, 40. Pretty simple stuff. But again, that is 61, 65 hotel. That is just covers task D. And again, this is a required part of instruction. Okay. So moving on to area of operation 3, pre-flight preparation. Right, weather information. Your DP can just ask the most basic thing like, oh, tell me what a TAF is. Tell me what a METAR is, right? This seems like private stuff, but again, you'd be surprised how many CFII applicants actually do not know this stuff. Stability charts, prog charts, SIGMETs, AirMets, severe weather outlook charts. Again, all this stuff is going to be within ForeFlight. Now, what you can do is go on ForeFlight and tap on imagery on the right side, and all this stuff comes up here. Surface analysis chart. Latest surface analysis chart, satellite, today's forecast, flight category, clouds, weather, precipitation, severe weather outlooks, everything like that. So again, ForeFlight is going to be the god of your CFII Checkride, I should say. Again, knowing where to find freezing level charts as well. Some people actually have difficulty with this. On ForeFlight, you can go on the little winds, or if you click on an airport, and you go on the winds tab of that airport, it shows you the altitudes and winds at certain altitudes. Then when you get to a certain altitude, it shows you actually the temperature decreasing, of course, since you're going up in altitude. And then it shows you usually where the freezing level is, which is, of course, 0, -1 degrees Celsius. So just be familiar with what that looks like. Pretty simple stuff. And then task B, cross-country flight planning. I did not have to cover this section, but as long as you're familiar with how to file on ForeFlight, how to put in Victor Airways, Tango routes, or you're familiar with GPS routes, MEA, all of your acronyms that pertain to that, right? AROCA, MTA, MRA, everything like that. So just know standard cross-country flight planning. Just implement the VFR side, except with fuel, weight and balance and everything, but also with SID, stars, if you're going to need an ODP, if you need to comply with that ODP. And then under Part 91, of course, takeoff minimums. We do not have any takeoff minimums, right? So knowing just little things like that is going to be important for your cross-country flight planning. But again, just make sure you go on and check off each and single one of these if it applies to you. Task C, instrument cockpit check. I was asked this section, right, since only of these three, it just selects, the examiner only has to select one task. I was asked the instrument cockpit check. So it's just the simple nav equipment, magnetic compass, DG is aligned and up and ready. Heading indicator, same thing, essentially. HSI, RMI, attitude indicator is up and erect within 5 degrees within 5 minutes. Altimeter, 75 feet within field elevation. Turn slip indicator, the rate of turn indicator, indicating the direction of turn. Inclinometer, the slip skid indicator, indicating the opposite direction of turn. VSI, if you're in steam gauge aircraft and the VSI shows, let's say, plus 100 feet, but you're on the ground, you can just check it off and just say, all right, we're going to use plus 100 feet as our 0 indication. So that is fine, that checks out. Airspeed indicator, it will be reading 0, and then check the outside air temperature, making sure that complies with what the actual temperature is. And then, of course, making sure you have a clock with minutes and second hands inside of the airplane. It has to be installed. You cannot use just on your phone a clock. It has to be installed in the aircraft. And then the pilot heat, the pitot heat, whatever it is, pilot heat, making sure you're familiar with those systems. The EFIS, or the electronic flight information display, if you have a G1000 aircraft, PFD, MFD, making sure everything is up with that. Traffic awareness, warning, avoidance system. There's TCAS if you have it equipped. If you don't, necessarily you don't need to worry about it. And then terrain awareness, warning system. If your plane isn't equipped with GPWIS, don't worry about it again. But G1000 aircraft will be at least more pertaining to these two things. And then an FMS, flight management system, again, just waypoints along the point. And then the automatic pilot. This will not pertain to you, of course, if you don't have an automatic pilot or an autopilot. But at least in your aircraft, just be familiar with how the system works. Okay. Now, area of operation, pre-flight lesson on a maneuver to be performed in flight. So the maneuver lesson, I forgot what I did honestly for this, but that's okay. So yeah, making a lesson plan that includes all essential items to making an effective and organized presentation. I forget which maneuver I had to do. It might have been just straight level flight or like how would I brief an ILS, I believe, or how would I do the ILS. So I'll be familiar with briefings in this case. So area of operation, 5 air traffic control clearances and procedures. The examiner shall select at least one task. Right, air traffic control clearances. To determine that the applicant exhibits instructional knowledge of air traffic control clearances by describing pilot controller responsibilities, blah, 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 blah. Just know how your craft clearance is going to be operated and how ATC basically can issue a clearance, take away a clearance, and kind of what that phraseology sounds like. So just again, be familiar with more or less just how ATC can give clearances and take them away and everything like that, and clearance void times. Clearance void if not off in 5 minutes. Call me when you're up in the air. Things like that. Compliance with departure, en route, and arrival procedures and clearances. So making sure if you're found a Victor Airway, you're at or above at least the MEA for adequate obstruction clearance and navigation coverage. Especially an MEA on a GPS route, making sure you're above that, making sure you have adequate signal. It's going to be important on SIDS and STARS as well, making sure you're complying with an airspeed restriction or an altitude restriction. You can bust those really easy inside of a jet aircraft and not a Piper Cherokee or a Cessna 150, so 172. It's going to be really hard to do that. But again, familiarize yourself with SIDS, STARS, and low en route charts with this, okay? Area of operation 6, flight by reference to instruments. Very straightforward. Literally straight and level flight. Just under the foggles. Very simple stuff. I'm sure you guys are CFIs. You know how to teach at this point. You should be able to learn how to teach straight and level flight. If you don't know how to teach straight and level flight, I do not know how to help you on the CFII Checkride. And then standard rate turns, of course, 3 degrees per second. How long did it take to turn 360 degrees? And standard rate, 2 minutes. We all know that. So the relationship of true airspeed, angle of bank, and standard rate turn. Just simple things. Instrument cross-check is going to be the most important thing with every single instrument maneuver. Okay. Task C, change of airspeed in straight and level flight. Again, pretty simple. Just basically change of airspeed. When we go in our final approach fix, we want to make sure we're at 90 knots. So practicing going from 90 knots to normal cruise, or normal cruise going to 90 knots, or even slow flight inside of the aircraft, right? Knowing how to do that and know the instrument cross-check. Very important. We have constant airspeeds, climbs, and descents. Again, this is very easy. If you are a private pilot, instrument pilot, commercial pilot, you should know how to climb at constant airspeeds and descents at this point, right? If you're climbing out at VX, you need to hold VX. If you're climbing at VY, you need to hold VY. This should be very easy for you if you are on the CFII Checkride at this point, so I won't go over that. Constant rate climbs and descents, right? On the VSI, 500 feet per minute descent, 500 feet per minute climb. Very simple stuff, more or less. Just kind of where your angle of attack is on the attitude indicator, but can also pertain to your airspeed. Then task F, time terms to magnetic compass headings. Again, this is just straight up putting on the clock when you're going into your standard rate term and timing the 360 degree turn. Should end up being 2 minutes. But again, describing the correlation between the two. Then we have steep turns. I was given steep turns on this. It kind of caught me off guard since the last time I actually did a steep turn was on my CFI Checkride, but it was fine. I was within standards because when you're a CFII applicant, you are basically top of the barrel, so you should know how to do your steep turns. I did mine to commercial standards of 50 degrees of bank, to the right 360 degrees, and to the left 360 degrees. So that was all that for steep turns. Then recovery from unusual flight attitudes. This is a mandatory section right here. Know how to give unusual attitudes and also know how to receive them. Right? You can think of it like blue, power through, brown, power out. If this is my horizon right here, or my horizon line, blue is going to be up here, resembling the sky. Brown is going to be down here, resembling the ground. Right? So if I'm in a nose high situation, I'm going to be in the blue, right? So I'm going to be in the blue. I'm going to do full throttle, and I'm going to want to establish, right, airflow over my wings as fast as possible to avoid stalling. And then, of course, vice versa, when going into the brown section, the ground, you want to retard that throttle, and then pull up, not as fast as you can, but gradually, making sure that you're not going to enhance your ground descent rate, because again, no one wants to go nose deep into the ground. I can tell you that. And then area of operation 7, navigation systems. You shall select A and B, and then performance of DME arc should be tested orally, or if you have a DME installed, you will be tested on that. So I actually did DME arcs, so be familiar with how to do a DME arc for sure. I would say that even on GPS, the examiner can still actually do this to you. Intercepting, tracking, navigational systems, DME arcs, know how to do that, a DME arc. Know how to perform it, how to teach it. Holding procedures. Again, if you don't know how to do a hold and you're a CFII applicant, I do not know how to help you. But know your sharp TT straight in. When do you not need a procedure turn, essentially. And then teardrop course reversal, know when to execute that, know when to execute a direct and parallel entry. That's going to be really the only thing pertaining to holding procedures, and also announcing your position reports when entering a holding fix and leaving a holding fix toward ATC. EFC times, if they give you an EFC time and they your navigation, your communication equipment goes kaput, squawking 7600 and then departing at your EFC time for whatever that route was filed. Again, going in order of MEA, AVEF, right? So altitude, MEA, minimum prescribed for IFR, your expected altitude, or your assigned altitude. All right, the highest of those three. Then we have AVEF, AVEF. This goes for your routing. So your last assigned routing, your last vectored, expected, and then filed. Go in that order of, again, what to do next in a lost comm scenario. But again, this pertains to holding procedures a little bit more, because at least that's when people usually can simulate the navigation, or the communication failure inside your airplane. Then area of operation 8, instrument approach procedures. Again, knowing how to do and execute an RNAV approach, ILS, localizer, whatever it is, know how to do it essentially. If your plane is equipped with an NDB, again, know how to operate your ADF and your NDB approach. Again, be all familiar with what the chart looks like, how to brief the approach. That's going to be very important, is the briefing, making sure you've gone through everything on that layout. Now, Jeppesen charts actually do a better way of laying out the briefing, just since you're not jumping back and forth like on the FAA charts at least. But again, FAA, they're free, so know that. So again, knowing your non-precision approach, knowing how to do that, you will go missed. You will do a precision approach and do the briefing, and then do the missed approach. I said that. Do the circling approach in an airplane. This is what consists of the airplane. On the circling approach, knowing that you have to stay within 1.3 nautical miles. Then if that applies to you, again, you can check the TERPS if it has non-standard circling minima. But knowing how to execute a circling approach and how to go missed on a circling approach. Know how to do that. Landing from a straight in approach. This was just the last landing going back to the airport once I passed. This was just a landing from an RNAV. Pretty easy stuff. And then emergency operation, loss of communications, my DPE, simulated loss of communications. So we just went in that order of MEA, AVEF, and I'll get into that in a minute over Pilot's Cafe. So going task B here, approach with loss of primary flight instrument indicators. I had a loss of a PFD failure, I should say. Again, just on the G1000, you'd hit the rev mode or reversionary mode. You get your PFD back up on the MFD, which is beautiful. We have engine failure during straight and level flight turns. I actually don't think this applies. I can't remember. I'll skip that for now just because I don't want to say something wrong. And task D will be multi-engine. During here, area of operation 10, post-flight procedures, checking instruments and equipment. Again, doing your classic post-flight procedure on your checklist. Again, you can still fail a check ride even by doing the improper post-flight procedure. So again, knowing your checklist, right? That's all about what instrument flying is just checklists. Okay, so now I will go over some good references to go over for your instrument check ride, right? So quizzes on Flight Insight. Flight Insight is this website right here, flightinsight.com/quizzes. Go on the top right under quizzes section, and then it has everything you can really want. What is ME, the en route charts, things, 6 questions IFR pilots should know, shooting approaches, ILS, VOR, DME, everything like that. 6 questions you'll get on your IFR check ride. This is very good quiz stuff that you can be tested on and everything. And again, this section for the CFII check ride, I'll link it below the video here. And then the IFR quick review sheets. Again, I discussed this earlier, but I'll put the link for this again down in the description below for knowing your IFR quick review study guide. Now, this has literally everything, okay? So if it's on here, then you really should know it, honestly. Even the new VOR service volumes, the new ones and the old ones, terminal, it's actually not available anymore, but again, knowing your low and your high, VOR check sign-offs, VOR limitations, very important. Approaching glide slope from a higher altitude, a false glide slope, the 4 things the 4 things that have an ILS, right? So the localizer, glide slope, marker beacons, or you can say distance information or range information, and then the approach lighting system, the ALS. So be familiar with the approach lighting system, especially in 91-175. I'll say that again, 91, 175, and when you can descend below your DA. Cool. So again, area navigation, RNAV, GPS, know everything like that. RNP, required navigational performance, navigation performance. Attitude, instrument flying, again, everything, marvelous, VFR, CFI-I, the required reports under IFR, then reports under non-radar environment. Position report items, holding speeds, teardrop, direct parallel, lost comm situation. This is what I was talking about earlier with the highest of the MEA AVEF. The altitude and then your route. Know everything like that. These are the different types of procedures that you can use, and knowing just little information, what a PT is, max speed in a PT, things like that. And again, when you can descend below the MDA and the DA, 91-175. This is the most important regulation. Most important. I say that, but most important, you could kind of say. But again, knowing when you can descend below the DA is very imperative. So moving on down here, again, knowing what a VDP is, be familiar with what a VDP is. Different types of airspace, special use airspace. Again, this is all the CFI commercial stuff that you should be able to know. Weather, of course, I'm not going to go over weather. Weather continued, weather hazards, thunderstorms, fog, icing. Again, you should know all of this stuff by now if you've passed your CFI check ride. Air medical factors, again, this is everything that goes over the instrument ACS and I would say sections of the CFII. But again, if you know everything on here, I guarantee you'll pass your CFII check ride. So that's going to be it for all of this. And again, what the symbols of everything looks like, the kind of the definitions of the names. So that is going to be it for the CFII how-to guide on how to pass your CFII Checkride. The first thing I can say is I hope you get a 100 on your CF or your FII instrument. One thing I highly suggest of all my students to say or to do is get your IGI and your FII. That will be the easiest written of your life. You can get the IGI. It's basically just a free kind of endorsement you can just add onto your resume. So I really recommend that. If you've done your instrument or your CFII, take your IGI exam. It's all through the scheduling software that the FAA uses. So do that. So that's it for today's video. I'll see you guys next one. In the meantime, I'm Aviation Hayden. Maintain VFR. Frequency change approved. See ya!